If you think your favorite character is safe in Stranger Things Season 5 Volume 2, you're already wrong, because this season isn't trying to protect anyone anymore. It isn't setting up comfort, it isn't interested in happy reunions or last-minute rescues. Volume 2 is where Stranger Things stops pretending this is a coming-of-age story and admits what it really is, an ending. Every character you've grown attached to has been moving toward a deadline, whether they realize it or not. The show has been laying the groundwork for years, in choices that didn't make sense at the time, in moments that felt like relief, in survivals that should have been final. None of that was mercy, it was delay, because final seasons don't reward bravery, they don't spare innocence, and they don't let everyone walk away. The relationships you care about aren't shields, they're targets. Every bond gives the story something to take, and Volume 2 is where it starts collecting. Once the first character falls, the rules change instantly. Fear becomes real, plans stop working, and the idea that anyone is untouchable disappears. This isn't speculation, it's narrative pressure reaching its breaking point. Some characters are going to die because they protect others, some because they know too much, some because they're connected to the Upside Down in ways that can't be undone. And the most dangerous ones aren't the reckless characters, they're the ones who feel finished. By the end of this video, you won't just know who dies in Stranger Things Season 5 Volume 2. You'll understand why the story never had another option. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share before we dive into the video. Steve Harrington is the moment Stranger Things proves it's done being merciful. For years, Steve has survived things that should have killed him. Not because he was smarter, not because he was stronger, but because the story needed a shield. Someone who could step in front of danger so the real damage didn't land yet. Steve became that shield. Every season, the pattern stayed the same. When chaos hits, Steve moves first. When someone freezes, Steve doesn't. When escape is possible, Steve stays behind just long enough to make it work. At first, that looked like growth. Then it looked like heroism. Now it looks like preparation. Steve's arc stopped being about redemption a long time ago. He already proved who he is. That's the problem. Characters who complete their arcs early don't survive final seasons. They become sacrifices. Season 5 Volume 2 doesn't need Steve to change anymore. It needs him to pay. There will be a moment when the group realizes the plan works, but only if someone holds the line. Only if someone stays where everyone else can't. And this isn't framed as a debate. It happens fast. Panic everywhere. Time collapsing. Steve doesn't wait. He doesn't ask if there's another option. He doesn't look for reassurance. He already knows. That's who he's been trained to be by the story itself. Steve's death isn't loud. It isn't shocking in the moment. It's heavy, deliberate, final. The kind of death that doesn't feel wrong. It feels devastating because it feels right. And the real damage doesn't come from Steve dying. It comes from what happens immediately after. Dustin loses the one person who made danger feel manageable. The group loses the illusion that experience guarantees survival, and the audience understands something instantly. If Steve Harrington can die, nobody is protected anymore. That's why Steve goes first. Not because he's weak, not because he made a mistake, but because the story needs to remove the shield before it starts taking everything else. And once Steve is gone, Stranger Things stops being a fight. Dustin Henderson is the heart Stranger Things has been protecting. From the very beginning, Dustin has been the character who makes danger feel survivable. He laughs when things get tense, asks questions instead of panicking, and believes there's always another option when everyone else starts giving up. That optimism isn't comic relief, it's structural. The show leans on Dustin to keep the story from becoming unbearable. That's exactly why his survival becomes impossible in the final chapter. After Steve's death, the tone changes completely. The safety net is gone, and Dustin feels it more than anyone. Steve wasn't just a protector, he was proof that someone always had their back. Without him, Dustin is exposed in a way he's never been before. And here's the critical point. Dustin doesn't stop believing. He still trusts the plan. He still thinks timing can be fixed. He still assumes the group will pull it off at the last second. Season 5 Volume 2 punishes that belief. Dustin's death doesn't come from recklessness. It comes from trust. He stays in a position he thinks is safe because it should be. He waits for a signal that never arrives. He assumes help is coming because it always has before. This time it doesn't. There's no dramatic battle, no heroic last stand, just the realization that the window closed while he was still hoping. For the first time in the entire series, Dustin doesn't fill the silence with humor. He doesn't laugh it off. He doesn't talk his way through it. He understands. That moment doesn't just end Dustin's story, it ends childhood. The group loses the one voice that kept fear from taking over, and everything after his death feels heavier, slower, and more dangerous. Steve's death removes protection. Dustin's death removes hope. And once hope is gone, Stranger Things becomes something else entirely. Nancy Wheeler is the character who understands the ending before anyone else does. From the very beginning, Nancy has been the one who refuses denial. While others panic or retreat, she investigates. She documents. She connects patterns nobody else wants to see. That instinct saves people early on. In the final season, it becomes a liability. Nancy knows too much. Vecna didn't show her visions by accident. He didn't choose her randomly. He chose her because she would understand them, and because understanding creates responsibility. Once Nancy sees how this ends, she can't unsee it. After Steve and Dustin are gone, the illusion of survival collapses. The group is no longer trying to win, they're trying to finish. Nancy realizes that the plan only works if someone stays behind to complete it manually, physically, without guarantees, and she knows exactly what that means. This isn't framed as a heroic choice. Nancy doesn't announce it. She doesn't ask for permission or reassurance. She simply steps into the role because nobody else can do it without failing. She is the only one who fully understands the mechanism, the timing, and the consequences. Nancy's death isn't chaotic, it's controlled. She stays while others leave. She keeps working while the situation deteriorates. She finishes what she started, knowing there is no path back once it's done. The tragedy of Nancy's death isn't fear, it's clarity. She is calm because she has already accepted the outcome. She doesn't believe the story owes her survival, and that acceptance makes the moment devastating. When Nancy is gone, the group loses its strategist. The person who could turn information into action disappears, and the story loses its ability to think its way out of danger. After Nancy Wheeler dies, Stranger Things stops being about solving the problem. It becomes about enduring the consequences. Jonathan Byers has been living on borrowed time since the beginning, not because he was reckless, but because he never allowed himself to exist outside of survival. Every decision Jonathan has made has been about protecting someone else. Will, Joyce, Nancy, while quietly pushing his own life to the side. That kind of self-erasure doesn't lead to escape. It leads to an ending. After Nancy is gone, Jonathan doesn't collapse. He doesn't break down. He goes quiet, and that's more dangerous. Jonathan has spent years absorbing loss without reacting, and by season 5, volume 2, there's nothing left to suppress. When the situation turns unstable, Jonathan doesn't hesitate to put himself in the path of danger, not because he wants to die, but because he's been preparing for this moment his entire life. Sacrifice is the only language he knows. Jonathan's death isn't framed as a heroic stand. It's practical. He sees a threat moving towards someone else and intercepts it. He stays where he shouldn't. He holds a position too long, and that's it. There's no dramatic goodbye, no final speech. He simply doesn't make it back. The absence hits harder than any explosion because it feels like something that was always coming. Jonathan dies the same way he lived, quietly ensuring someone else survives. And when he's gone, the Byers family loses the one person who carried the weight without ever asking to be seen. Jonathan Byers doesn't die loudly, he disappears, and the story moves on without giving him the recognition he never demanded. Jim Hopper was never supposed to survive this story. From the moment he was introduced, Hopper was already broken. He wasn't fighting for the future, he was surviving the past. Losing his daughter didn't make him fearless, it made him reckless, and recklessness only works for so long. Season 3 already gave Hopper an ending. Season 4 gave him borrowed time. Season 5 doesn't give him mercy. Hopper understands something the others don't. Gates don't close cleanly. Someone always has to be on the wrong side. Someone always has to hold the line while everyone else finishes what they started. And Hopper never expected to be the one who walks away. When the final collapse begins, Hopper doesn't rush. He doesn't panic. He knows exactly what's happening the moment it starts. While others are trying to escape, Hopper is already positioning himself where the damage will hit hardest. He doesn't announce it. He doesn't explain himself. He just stays. Hopper's death isn't violent. It isn't dramatic. It's controlled and deliberate. The gate seals while he's still holding it open long enough for the others to finish their part. When it closes, he's gone. And the difference this time is acceptance. Hopper already made peace with dying once. This time, it simply counts. There's no unfinished business left behind, no regret hanging over his story. Hopper doesn't die fighting Vecna. He dies making sure the fight ends. And with him gone, Stranger Things loses its last line of defense. The adult who understood the cost and paid it without hesitation. Hopper doesn't get a miracle. He gets an ending. Will Byers dies because the story cannot end while he's alive. That truth has been hiding in plain sight since the very first episode. Stranger Things didn't begin with a monster. It began with Will disappearing. Everything that followed, the gates, the upside down, Vecna, the collapse of Hawkins, all of it traces back to him. Will wasn't just a victim of the upside down. He became part of it. Even after he escaped, the connection never broke. He felt it when others couldn't. He sensed danger before it arrived. He carried something back that never let go. Season 5, Volume 2 finally explains why. Will realizes the Upside Down isn't sustained by Vecna alone. It's anchored through him, through his fear, his trauma, his unfinished presence between worlds. As long as Will exists, the door never fully closes. Ending this doesn't require a weapon, it requires removal. Will understands this before anyone else does, and that understanding doesn't terrify him. It brings clarity. For the first time, everything makes sense. Why it was him, why it never stopped, why he never truly felt free. Will doesn't fight the realization, he doesn't run from it, he accepts it. His death isn't violent, there's no monster tearing him apart, no last second rescue, just a moment where he chooses to stay connected long enough for the collapse to finish. Will doesn't scream, he doesn't beg, he doesn't panic, he lets go. And when Will Byers dies, the Upside Down finally starts to disappear, not dramatically, but completely. The signal fades, the pressure lifts, the connection snaps. The story that began with his disappearance ends with his choice. Will Byers doesn't die as a victim, he dies as the solution. 11 dies because the world she saved can't exist while she does. From the moment she was created, 11 was never meant to live in peace. Her powers weren't a gift, they were forged through pain, isolation, and violence. Every time she saved someone, she did it by reopening wounds that never healed. 11 didn't grow up fighting monsters, she became one so others wouldn't have to. By Season 5, Volume 2, that truth can't be ignored anymore. The Upside Down doesn't just respond to her power, and it mirrors it. Two forces born from the same source, feeding off trauma, existing because something was broken long ago. Destroying one without addressing the other was never possible. 11 understands this before anyone says it out loud. Closing the Upside Down permanently requires an anchor, someone strong enough to absorb the collapse, to take everything that remains and pull it inward so it can't spill back into the world again. There is only one person capable of doing that, and it's her. 11's death isn't forced on her. No one pushes her toward it. There's no dramatic argument, no final battle cry. This is the first decision in her life that belongs entirely to her. She chooses to stay. There's no fear in her face when it happens. No panic, just stillness. For the first time, the noise in her head fades. The pressure that defined her existence finally stops. 11 doesn't die screaming. She doesn't die fighting. She dies finishing the story. When she's gone, the Upside Down collapses completely. No echoes, no cracks, no lingering presence. The world becomes quiet in a way it never has before, and that silence is her legacy. 11 doesn't get to live in the world she saved. She becomes the reason it finally survives. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more deep dive Stranger Things theories.